Welcome to Deep Bear Sleep. If you're looking to relax and fall asleep fast, you're in the right place. Settle in, get comfortable, and let the sound of my voice take you deep into sleep. For more stories like this one, visit deepbearsleep.com. Now, let's begin. Eleanor stood by the kitchen window, the morning light a pale wash across the oak floorboards. The porcelain of her favorite mug felt smooth and cool where it met her palm, its warmth a steady, radiating comfort against her fingers. A faint scent of lavender, a residue from her wrists, mingled with the rising steam from the chamomile infusion within. Beyond the glass, a robin hopped on the dew-kissed lawn, its movements precise as it pecked at the earth. She watched the bird for a long moment, the rhythm of its foraging a familiar, almost unnoticed pattern. The hum of the refrigerator provided a low, continuous underscore to the stillness of the room. A single ray of sun found its way through a gap in the maple leaves outside, illuminating motes of dust dancing in the air above the granite counter. It felt like countless mornings had begun this way, each one unfolding with a similar series of small habitual gestures. The brewing of the tea, the selection of the mug, the contemplation of the waking world just beyond the pane. Sometimes, she considered, the edges of these mornings began to blur. The distinctness of Tuesday's sunrise might meld into Wednesday's, the particular tilt of light from one day becoming indistinguishable from the next. The routine itself, while grounding, also held a curious capacity to dissolve the sharpness of individual moments, folding them into an overarching current of sameness. She sipped her tea, the warmth spreading through her, and wondered about the precise point where experience transformed from a series of distinct observations into a continuous, flowing stream carrying her along. Eleanor set her mug down on the cool granite. The question lingered, a wisp of thought like the last curl of steam from her tea. She walked into the living room, the muted light from the bay window falling upon the spine of a book left open on the coffee table. It was a memoir of an oceanographer, a passage describing the profound stillness found within the depths. The image of those serene, vast spaces often surfaced in her mind. Today, however, it brought with it a distinct impulse. A memory stirred, not of the book, but of an advertisement she had seen weeks ago, tucked into a local newspaper. It featured a shimmering blue corridor, a promise of submersion. The Oceanic Passage, it was called, a place designed for observation, for walking through water without truly entering it. She had dismissed it then, a novelty perhaps, but now the idea held a particular weight. It offered a structure, a framework for witnessing, much like her morning rituals provided a frame for the day. This time, though, the frame was external, a created environment. A deliberate choice began to form. She would visit the passage. Later that afternoon, the sunlight had shifted, casting longer shadows across the sidewalk as she approached the building. Its facade was understated, a pale gray stone. Inside, the air carried a faint, briny scent, a suggestion of the deep. She found the ticketing counter, its surface polished, reflecting the ambient light. A transaction occurred, a small card exchanged for a small sum. The act felt definitive, a commitment to an experience. She moved towards a wide, arching entrance, the walls within beginning to glow with an aquatic luminescence. The corridor beyond pulled her forward. The floor beneath her feet was smooth, a muted gray, and the walls on either side were not walls at all, but vast, curved panes of glass. On the other side, a world of moving blue. Fish, their scales catching the light, drifted past. A school of silver darted in unison, a shimmering cloud. The water held a deep, resonant hue, an expanse of clear sapphire. She stepped fully into the tunnel, the gentle hum of filtration systems a low thrum against the distant murmur of other visitors. The glass pressed in, containing the ocean, yet allowing her to move through its heart. She was present, observing the slow ballet of marine life, the steady flow of the currents just beyond her reach. The blue deepened around her as she progressed. The light filtered through the immense volume of water, creating shifting patterns on the smooth gray floor. A manta ray, immense and dark against the distant shimmer, unfurled its wide, dark wings. It moved with a serene undulation, a silent flight through the liquid air. Eleanor watched its passage, the edges of its form dissolving into the deeper sapphire hues as it receded. Her breath came in an even measure, aligning with the rhythm of the ocean's subtle currents that she could almost feel through the thick pain. The world outside the glass, the other visitors, their murmurs, began to recede. Their presence became a distant, indistinct sound, like pebbles shifting on a faraway shore. Her attention drew inward, then outward again, expanding to encompass the luminous expanse. A school of small silver fish swirled into view, a living metallic cloud. They moved as one organism, their bodies flashing in unison, catching and reflecting the filtered light. Each individual scale was a tiny mirror, contributing to the collective brilliance. Eleanor found herself mesmerized by the intricate coordination, the seamless ebb and flow of their forms. It was a dance without a choreographer, a spontaneous, unified expression of movement. She followed their trajectory with her eyes, her own body feeling lighter, less tethered. The floor beneath her feet seemed to soften, becoming less a solid surface and more a continuation of the fluid environment. The boundaries of her skin, usually so distinct, seemed to loosen, allowing the blue light to permeate, to seep into her very perception. The air she breathed, though conditioned and contained, carried a faint saline memory, a suggestion of the vast open ocean just beyond the protective barrier. The feeling of her clothes against her skin, the weight of her shoes, even the faint scent of lavender from earlier that morning, all these sensations diminished, replaced by the encompassing sensory input of the aquatic world. A large loggerhead turtle, its shell mottled with greens and browns, paddled into her field of vision. Its ancient eyes regarded the glass for a moment, an unblinking stare that seemed to hold millennia of oceanic wisdom. The turtle moved with an unhurried dignity, its flippers propelling it through the water with powerful, deliberate strokes. It passed so close to the glass that Eleanor could discern the intricate patterns on its carapace, the scars and textures of a long life lived within the deep. She felt a connection, a resonance with this creature of immense endurance, as if her own sense of time had stretched, encompassing the slow, enduring rhythm of the turtle's existence. The colors around her were not merely visual, they resonated within her. The deep indigo of the furthest reaches, the vibrant emerald of the occasional plant life clinging to submerged rocks, the unexpected flash of coral orange from a small anemone. Each hue seemed to paint itself on the canvas of her internal awareness, enriching the landscape of her mind. She ceased to label them, ceased to categorize. They simply were, a pure experience of color and light. A pair of clownfish, bright orange with stark white bands, peeked from the waving tentacles of an anemone. Their movements were jerky, playful, yet always returning to the safety of their home. Eleanor watched their constant darting, their tiny explorations, and the quick retreats. She noticed the slight sway of the anemone, how its delicate tendrils moved with the most imperceptible shifts in the water's flow. The interplay between the fish and their refuge felt like a perfectly orchestrated micro-ecosystem, a complete world contained within itself, inviting a quiet contemplation. Her thoughts, usually a steady stream of observations and reflections, began to thin. The usual internal monologue, the commentary that accompanied her waking hours, faded into a distant echo. There was only the immediate, unfolding spectacle. The intricate dance of the silver school returned, passing by again, its collective form shifting and reforming with an almost hypnotic grace. The individual fish became indistinguishable, absorbed into the larger pattern, and Eleanor, too, felt herself becoming less a singular observer and more a part of the vast, encompassing tableau. The cool temperature of the air within the tunnel, the faint hum of the machinery, even the smooth gray floor beneath her feet, all these elements blended into a cohesive, immersive sensation. The glass itself, once a distinct barrier, now felt like a permeable membrane, a shimmering veil through which her consciousness could extend and intermingle with the aquatic world. She was no longer just looking at the ocean. She was, in a profound and immediate sense, within it. The current of her awareness flowed outward, merging with the currents she perceived. The light continued to play, dappling the forms of passing fish, highlighting the texture of a rock formation, or illuminating the undulating fronds of a sea fan. Each movement, each shift in light, drew her further into the experience. A lone barracuda, sleek and silver, suspended itself almost motionless in the current, its gaze fixed and unblinking. It was a predator, yet its stillness conveyed an immense serenity, a perfect balance within its environment. Eleanor observed its perfect poise, the way it held itself in the water, requiring no visible effort. Its presence added a layer of profound calm to the vibrant activity surrounding it. She felt a loosening within her chest, a release of any residual tension she hadn't even known she carried. The concept of Eleanor Vance began to dissolve, not in a loss of self, but in an expansion. Her awareness seemed to stretch, encompassing the vastness of the water, the intricate lives of the creatures, the ceaseless, silent rhythm of the underwater world. She was not just observing the flow, she was part of the flow. The experience was not something external to be processed, it was internal, residing within the core of her being. The distinctions between observer and observed grew increasingly fine, almost imperceptible. The vibrant coral, the darting fish, the vast empty spaces of blue, they were not separate entities perceived by her eyes, but facets of a single encompassing reality that she now inhabited. The question she had pondered earlier about the blurring of distinct moments into a continuous stream seemed to find their answer here, in this liquid world. Each moment, each creature, each shimmer of light was part of an unbroken current. She was simply carried along, a part of the moving, living water, entirely present, entirely immersed. The notion of a separate self, standing apart, diminished with each passing wave of blue light, until the blue seemed to contain all that she was and all that was.
Eleanor's awareness now flowed without friction. The distinct weight of her body, the familiar contours of her face, her personal history, these details receded, becoming distant echoes in a vast, liquid silence. She was no longer a person traversing a tunnel, but a permeable vessel, allowing the light and movement of the ocean to pass through her, to fill spaces where her thoughts once resided. The light itself seemed to possess a deeper resonance, not just illuminating water, but becoming a part of water, a shimmering texture that infused everything. A large jellyfish, its bell pulsing with an ethereal luminescence, drifted near the glass. Its intricate tendrils trailed behind it, a delicate curtain of living lace. Eleanor watched its effortless locomotion, the rhythmic contraction and expansion of its form, an ancient beat. There was no striving, no visible effort, only a profound surrender to the currents that carried it. Observing the jellyfish, she felt her own internal rhythm synchronize, her breathing deepening, aligning with the creature's timeless dance. The idea of her own lungs, her own heart, seemed abstract, replaced by this larger, universal pulsation. The colors continued their wordless communication, not just shades of blue, but greens of algae on a submerged rock face, vivid purples of a sea urchin nestled in a crevice. These were not separate observations. They were textures of the experience, threads in a living tapestry. Her perception absorbed them, not as individual data points, but as an integrated whole, a continuous unfolding. The hues seemed to awaken deeper, dormant senses within her, a way of knowing that bypassed the analytical mind, reaching instead a place of primal recognition, an ancient understanding of belonging. It was a sensation of being utterly integrated, not just observing the water's endless narratives, but participating in their unfolding, a silent, breathing component of the blue expanse. The very concept of time, with its distinct tick of seconds and hours, had dissolved into the ceaseless, rhythmic swell of the ocean's heart. Then a flicker, not within the water, but on its surface, or rather, on the surface of the pane before her, a momentary shift in the filtered light, perhaps a temporary gap in the procession of marine life, created a window. In that fleeting instant, the glass, which had for so long been invisible, became apparent once more. It was a faint, shimmering boundary, almost imperceptible, yet undeniably present, and within its transparent plane, a form began to coalesce.
It was her own face, a pale, indistinct oval, framed by the wisps of her hair, superimposed over the deep sapphire of the water. The lines of her cheekbone, the curve of her jaw, the barely visible outline of her nose, they were ghost-like, ephemeral, yet distinctly hers. Her eyes, magnified and deepened by the glass and the blue light behind them, held an expression of profound stillness, mirroring the calm of the surrounding depths. For a beat, her own image floated there, a translucent presence within the fluid world. The sight did not startle her. There was no abrupt jolt, no sudden rupture of the immersive spell. Instead, a recognition bloomed, steady and clear, like a deep-sea flower unfurling its petals. Eleanor. The name surfaced from a quiet corner of her mind, a soft echo. This reflection, this faint outline was her. It was Eleanor Vance, standing on a smooth gray floor, enclosed within a structure of stone and glass, observing. The creatures that had moved around her, the currents that had flowed through her perception, were indeed beyond this pain, beyond her skin. She watched her own reflected eyes watching the barracuda, which now held its poise just behind her spectral image. The juxtaposition was striking. The wild, ancient life of the ocean and her own human form, a momentary overlay. The glass was not a barrier that separated, but a membrane that allowed for this unique confluence, this singular perspective. She was the one who had purchased the ticket, the one who had chosen to walk this path. The experience was hers, flowing through her, yet she remained distinctly herself, the conscious perceiver. A sense of individual presence returned, not as a sharp distinction, but as a renewed anchor, holding her gently within the vastness. Her hands, still carrying the phantom warmth of her mug, seemed to press faintly against the cool air, a reminder of her body, her own place in the world. The bridge was still there, and she was still walking it. The blue continued to flow, but now Eleanor was distinctly within it, and yet apart, a luminous point of awareness. Her consciousness, once stretched to encompass the vastness, began to gather itself, drawing back towards the familiar vessel of her own form. The shimmering veil of the glass, once almost non-existent, now gradually asserted its presence as a clear division. The endless narratives of the water, the silent, breathing components of the blue expanse, remained etched within her, but no longer enveloped her entirely. The murmurs of other visitors, which had faded to distant echoes, now grew slightly clearer, regaining their distinct human timbre. She noticed the coolness of the air on her skin, a sensation that had been subsumed by the feeling of permeation. Eleanor took a step, then another, along the smooth gray path. The floor felt solid beneath her shoes once more, grounding her.
She moved towards the arching exit, the glowing aquatic luminescence slowly diminishing as she approached the transition zone. The briny scent in the air remained, a faint memory, a lingering whisper of the deep. As she passed through the threshold, the pale gray stone walls of the building reappeared, solid and real. The afternoon light, though mellowed by the interior, seemed brighter than the filtered blue she had just left behind. She found herself in a quiet waiting area, a few chairs arranged around a small circular table. A ceramic pot held a single deep green fern. She paused, allowing the transition to settle. The small card, the ticket she had purchased, felt cool and firm in her hand, a tangible reminder of her choice. She had bought the experience, had walked the chosen path, had allowed the world to flow around and through her, and now she carried something new from that journey. The conscious perceiver she bought, not just swept away, but a vessel that had sailed purposefully into a different kind of current. Stepping out of the building, the late afternoon sun warmed her face. The shadows on the sidewalk stretched long and distinct. The air carried the faint, sweet scent of newly mown grass from a nearby park, mingling with the distant sound of traffic. Each sensation registered with a fresh clarity, as if her senses had been recalibrated, made more receptive. The rough texture of the pavement beneath her shoes, the particular warmth of the sun on her arm, the slight variations in the greens of the trees, these details, often overlooked, now held a renewed vividness. She walked the familiar route back to her street, the rhythm of her steps echoing the calm pace within her. The world outside her had not changed, but her way of experiencing it had shifted. The noise of a car passing seemed less jarring, more integrated into the general hum of the afternoon. The individual leaves on a maple tree rustled with a particular animation, each one a distinct dancing form in the breeze. Entering her kitchen, the afternoon light, now a mellow orange, lay across the oak floorboards. The porcelain of her favorite mug still sat on the cool granite counter. She picked it up, feeling its familiar weight, the lingering phantom warmth. The faint fragrance of the wooden cabinets blended with the memory of lavender from her wrists.
She walked to the window. The robin had flown, but a single bumblebee, rotund and fuzzy, bumbled amongst the blossoms of the lavender bush just outside. Its tiny legs worked with an intricate dedication, gathering pollen, its movements precise and self-contained. Eleanor watched it, not with the detached observation of before, but with a deeper resonance, a sense of shared presence. The hum of the refrigerator provided its low, continuous underscore. The motes of dust still danced in the sunbeam above the granite. These small, habitual gestures, the everyday unfolding, now felt imbued with a new dimension. The distinctness of each moment, the precise tilt of the light, the particular flight of the bee, these details now held their own singular beauty. The flow was still there, the continuous current of life, but within it, each wave, each droplet, each shimmer of light was now acknowledged, appreciated, held. She had returned to the familiar, but her gaze carried the vastness of the blue, the quiet wonder of the deep, a recognition that she was the one observing, the one experiencing, the one holding the mug, here, now. A sense of presence settled, calm and enveloping, like the last light of the day. Until next time, sleep well.